And for my combat vets, that they see that correlation right there, because it is like, it doesn't matter that, you know, you freaking ran a badass patrol last week. If you're in a firefight today, we need to focus on this firefight so we can get ourselves and our mates home. Jiu-jitsu is the same way. If you have a guy who's 50, outweighs you by 50 pounds and a little more skill than you, you have to focus on that moment, right? And that focus is going to translate to other parts of your life, 100%. Because now your brain knows, right? And it's, I mean, obviously it's not something traumatic like war, but it's something that you could 100% apply it to your day-to-day. You can have a tough project at work, and you have a timeline. All right, time to focus, bear down. And I think a lot of vets are so used to that, but through the years they might lose it because, you know, life happens. And here it's like you're responsible, you know, on the mat, it's your actions that are getting you out from that guy.
Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. So let's get into this. Talk to me about surfing.
Surfing. An old coworker of mine taught me how to surf. I enjoyed it because it was honestly one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I know a lot of guys can get on a surfboard in a week or a day. It took me 6 months. So I always kind of favored myself as a pretty athletic guy. I could do things, you know, no problem, fast, strong, whatever. But surfing was tough. It was really, really hard. The other thing, you have to get up really early to catch the best waves.
Okay.
So that kind of took me back to the military a bit, wanting to like, all right, it's time to get up early and get in some really cold water. And but it's honestly something that's helped my spirit a lot, helped my attitude a lot, reminded me how small I am in this world.
Did you go looking for it as an outlet, or just kind of happenstance?
No. So I knew a few guys that surfed, and they were always super laid back, great attitudes, especially on the job, you know. So I started to ask a few guys, and one guy was like, "Oh, dude, I'll totally show you. I love teaching people." And then he said I was one of his hardest students, because he's like, "Oh, I'll get you up in a month," and it didn't happen that way. But it was definitely an outlet for sure.
Did you start on a longboard or a shortboard? Longboard.
Yeah, I was on a 10-footer Becker.
I only asked because I'm kind of thinking about, you know, venturing into that myself.
Right.
And everybody I've talked to said kind of the same thing. You think it seems so easy.
Yeah.
Hey, just paddle out, jump up, stand on a board.
Yeah.
A lot harder than it looks.
Absolutely.
But how did you find, did you immediately find that it helped you from the mental side of things?
Well, initially it was pretty tough because I wasn't getting on a board. But once I caught my first wave, then I was like, yes, this is what I want. I want more of this. And then kept going and training, and it gets you in really good shape as well. But again, I think a lot of problem for people is ego. It gets in the way of a lot of things. I know some very successful people that still combat that to this day. And I think surfing is an ego killer for sure. I mean, again, you could be 6'2", 240, you know, an athlete, and then you think you're going to drown on a 3-foot wave that crushes you. So,
well, we're going to get into this talking about BJJ, but it's the same thing. If you can't check your ego at the door, or if you can't check your ego at the sand, and realize that you have to learn, it's a process.
Right.
You can't just go, oh, that seems easy, I'm going to go do it.
Exactly.
Because it's gonna eat you alive.
Yeah. And every day is different. You know what I mean? You can have a weekend where you crushed it, and then you go back in the water 4 days later and you got crushed. And it's like, you feel like a brand new guy again. And I think that's important.
Now, how long you been doing it?
I've been surfing now for about 10 years. Wow. I hadn't thought about it in a while. Yeah. About 10 years.
How often do you get out?
So I used to surf like 4 or 5 days a week. Since I had my son, I'm surfing once a month. Yeah. So I'm hoping that he will want to pick it up soon. and some he and I can do together, and then I'll get back in the water a lot.
Does he have an interest in the waves in the ocean, or is he kind of?
So he did initially. I used to put him on the board with me, and then we had a pretty bad wipeout. I mean, he was fine, but in his head, it was like, I'm not going to make it out of this. So I don't want to force him back on the board. I want him to tell me, I want to get back on the board with you. Let's go. So
there was no surfing in your background as a kid. This is all as an adult?
Yeah, everything was an adult. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in projects in Harbor City. It's a little town outside of Los Angeles. And so I would go to the beach a lot, but I didn't know anyone that surfed until I was older.
No interest though as a kid, or just didn't know anybody?
No, I always thought it was cool. I just didn't know anyone who knew how to surf. Yeah. Growing up in a rough neighborhood, it's not something that project kids do as an activity.
Well, getting a hold of a surfboard is probably a hard thing in the first place.
Right. I was lucky. My mom, took me to swimming lessons and taught me how to swim as a kid, because I knew a lot of buddies that didn't know how to swim as kids.
Big family, small family?
I have older brothers and a younger sister, single mom. So yeah, pretty small family, but I have a lot of aunts and uncles, a lot of cousins. I grew up with all of them. So yeah, in that regard, it's super large. But as far as my immediate family, there's not too many of us.
As a kid growing up, what were you thinking your future was going to be? What were you leaning towards?
So again, growing up in a rough neighborhood, and my older brother is basically my father.
Okay. How much older than you is he?
He's 13 years older.
Oh, okay.
Than I am. Yeah. So he joined the Marine Corps in 87. So I was 7 years old, and he's my hero. So once he went there, I was like, oh, that looks cool. Maybe I'll do that. So, yeah, that's how that went.
So as a kid growing up, you from looking at your brother, you were kind of leaning towards towards the military.
Correct. Yeah.
Was that a fixed, like, you're in high school. Did you know, hey, I'm going in the Marine Corps as soon as I'm out of high school?
Well, I did, because I was like, if I get like a scholarship or a partial or something, I'll definitely go that route, but that didn't happen. So, again, I grew up in low income family. So I knew, like, okay, using the military, it's something like many people use it as a kind of a social, ladder that they can climb, to kind of get them out of poverty. And I was one of those. Yeah.
Out of high school, straight into the military, or was there
No, I was 2 weeks later, I was gone.
And what year is this?
This was 99.
And how many years did you do in the Marines?
I did a little over 4 years.
At any point in time, were you thinking that was going to be your long term?
It crossed my mind a few times on some deployments. But then I was in Iraq for 10 months. So that was like, if I re-enlist, I'm coming back here at least 2 more times. And I was
not your favorite part of the world?
No. It was, yeah.
Was your brother still active when you went in?
No. He was a reservist. I went in full-time active duty. He was a reservist, and he did, I think reservists do 7 or 6 years, something like that. I don't really remember, but he just did that and got out.
So you ultimately did 5 years, you said?
No, just a little over 4. I got 4. Extended a little bit.
And then what were you thinking when you were coming out? Were you already planning your next transition?
So I had wanted to become a police officer. My brother's a police officer. But then coming back from Iraq, honestly, I didn't know if carrying a gun for a living was something I wanted to do. So I kind of backed off for about 10 months. And I was just traveling and just doing that.
What kind of traveling were you doing? So like load up a car, kind of drive?
No, I used to, I've backpacked all over the world, basically. Oh. Yeah, I've traveled to about 53 countries or something like that. So I'm pretty well traveled.
What's the longest stretch you've been?
43 days.
And just kind of like hostels and...
Correct. Yeah, a little of everything.
Where was your favorite place to visit?
It depends. That's a hard question to answer, because if we're talking, say, scenery and things like that, Norway was breathtaking for sure. Very nice people too. Nightlife, then it might take you to certain parts of Europe or Indochina. So it all depends. I love cultures. I love food. So I was out there doing it all. Yeah.
Have you been back to revisit any of your previous trips?
So I rarely go back to the same country twice, because the world's
been there, done
big.
that.
Yeah. So I wanted as many countries as I could kind of get under my belt. But I've been to a few twice. I've been to Prague twice. I went to Sweden twice, Japan twice, Costa Rica twice.
Any surfing specific trips?
Costa Rica. Yeah. That place is beautiful. If you have the cardio, you could literally surf for 7 hours. Like here in California, it's going to wash out. You know what I mean? So there's no point in being out there that long.
You mean the waves will flatten out?
Correct. But in Costa Rica, they'll fire all day, night, morning. No one has that kind of cardio, but if you did, you could surf for 6 hours in Costa Rica.
So what made you finally shut down the traveling and say, okay, I need to get back to a real life?
You're talking about those 10 months?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my brother was like, hey, like, you just going to do this forever or what? And I was like, no. He goes, you join the force or what? And I was kind of like, I'm going to like seriously think about it these next like month or two. I kind of sat down, did a lot of self-reflecting, and I still wanted to serve people. And I don't know. I think we're all born for certain things. And, I'm not trying to be some tough guy or nothing, but I enjoy like working with people and solving a pretty hectic problem together as a team. So then I decided, all right, I'll do it.
And so what year was that?
That was 2004, early 2004.
And obviously still current with that today.
Correct.
When did you start BJJ?
I started a little of it in the Marine Corps because they just started to come out with their martial arts program. And there was a guy who was probably half my size, and he like totally worked me over. And I was like, dude, I want to learn this,
Nobody's heard that story before who's done BJJ.
So, I kind of picked it up a little there. And then obviously in the police academy, you do a little there. And then my boss and a few of my coworkers did it. And my boss at the time was like an OG for jiu-jitsu. He learned from like the Machado brother, all the Machado brothers that were down here. And they would get together every Saturday, and I started to show up, and they were my first instructors. I didn't belong to a formal school for over 2 years. So
this was just, for no better term, kind of in-service training.
Correct. Yeah.
And what about that? I mean, from there, did you actually obviously went into a formal school?
Correct. Yeah.
What made that transition?
I wanted to get better. And my boss was like, look, you got a knack for this. You like it. You should join a school so you can go more than once a week. He goes, you're only going to get so good going once a week. And then, so in jiu-jitsu, there's two separations of gi and no gi. So gi being just the kimono, you think of traditional jiu-jitsu, and then the belt. And then no gi would be, your shorts and t-shirt kind of thing.
Do you specialize in one or the other?
No, I like them both. I think it's important to do both for sure.
When you started out with your guys from law enforcement,
right,
were they doing gi or no gi?
I didn't have a gi, so we just did no gi mostly. Sometimes they would put it on, and they would let me borrow one, but then I would just get killed again. So I was like, I don't want to wear it. But at the former school, I knew that it's important to wear it for, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, it makes you more technical. The way I explain it is, if they have problems holding you down with this pajama on, right, then no gi, there's no way it'll be a real tough time holding you down. So,
do you actually go to the route of actually competing?
Yeah, I competed a lot.
Are you still competing today?
I haven't competed in probably 4 years. But funny thing, I just had this conversation with some friends last week. During New Year's, I was like, all right, I'm getting back on the podium this year. So I'll go at it again this year.
You have anything set on your calendar, or is it just you're going to do it this year?
Yeah, no, I'll compete a few times this year. When I was before my son, that's something I did a lot. I competed a lot.
So working back around to this, when you do surfing for your own mental health,
correct,
you to a degree do BJJ or jiu-jitsu for mental health.
Absolutely.
What is it about those two events that helps you for that mental space?
I think for me personally, a lot of it is it keeps my ego in check. But also it's always different, right? And I think that the most attractive thing to me is you can't be good enough. You just can't. You could practice jiu-jitsu all day long and you'll never perfect every escape, every submission, every takedown. There's too much. You'll never get to a point where I was like, I have mastered this, period. You just won't get there. So I think that journey in itself speaks very highly to me.
Always something to strive for.
Correct.
There's always another wall to get over or a hill to climb.
Right.
So your own mental health journey, when did you first start seeing the symptoms?
Honestly, I didn't know there were issues, to be honest with you.
What did you think they were at the time?
Nothing. Not that that's just how I'm built.
Okay.
This is how I am, and I'm going to keep on keeping on. Not until I actually sat down in a therapist's office at the VA office, where I still remember to this day, she put a paper in front of me and she said, "What are these?" And I was like, "They're my addresses. So you've moved 7 times in 6 years." And I'm like, "Okay, so you put it that way." I never thought about it. She goes, "Do you think that's a problem?" And I was like, "Well, now that you said that, yeah, like no one's ever said that. Like, why are you moving so much?"
Right.
You know, or why are you leaving this neighborhood? I was just, "Oh, time to go. Let's go over here. Oh, time to go over here." In the military, I moved around a lot though too. You know, I always wanted to deploy. So I was always deployed, come back stateside for a few weeks and then taken off somewhere else. And I guess I just thought that's how life was. And then kind of with my traveling too, that's what I did. I backpacked my way, you know, through the world.
Kind of running away from something, but not realizing you were running away from anything at the time.
I mean, yeah, again, some people might call it running away. I was just, I don't know. I didn't feel like, I don't know, being static is, I guess, where you start thinking about things that maybe you shouldn't think about.
What was the one catalyst, though, that got you to finally go talk to a therapist?
Yeah, it's easy. My son, birth of my son, right there, hands down. Because I was already out of the Marine Corps, 10 years or something like that. When I knew he was coming, I was like, okay, I grew up without my dad. So that's a big thing for me that I told myself as a kid, like if I'm ever a father, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And when I found out he was coming, I was like, I'm not in that position to do X, Y, and Z. So do what you got to do to make it happen. And one of those was finding therapy.
And when did you start going to therapy? Do you remember?
Yeah, about 8 years ago.
Do you still go today?
Absolutely.
How important is it for you to still go and talk to that therapist?
So the good thing for me, I've never been quiet about it, ever. Like even my first week, I would go talk to my sister and my brother and I'll tell them and they're like, "Wow, that's really good. I'm glad you're going," et cetera, et cetera. But it's, how can I put it? I guess let's take a military term. Like instead of you bearing this burden on your own, we have this huge problem, right? Let's see if the fire team can fix it. Fire team can't fix it, the squad. The squad can't, the platoon. And then you just kind of go up that way. So it just helps kind of navigate through the world. I don't go all the time, but I'm never I don't wait 7 months to not go, Yeah, it's like a tune-up, I guess you could say.
So using your example of when the therapist put out the sheet of paper and had all the addresses on it,
right? What
did you end up learning was why you were moving so much?
Well, I mean, man, we've talked so much over the years, but yeah, I was just always thinking there was something else, basically. Not like good or bad, just searching for something else to do. Especially living out here in like SoCal, you know, there's always something to do. And I've lived in some pretty small towns in this country, and it's like, oh, there's nothing to do. But what's funny now, I kind of seek that nothing to do. Like, I'm okay with it now because I'm might not be as physically as strong as I was when I was younger, but mentally I'm strong. And that's what, you know, I credit that to my support system, my therapist. Let's give an example. My sister, my pals, my Marine buddies, people like that. I rely on them a lot, and they rely on me a lot. Cause again, I have had a lot of people approach me because I'm so open about it. Like, hey, Jose, say at work, like, hey, how do you go about this? Oh, cool. Yeah. This is what you have to do. Here's the phone numbers. Or, oh, I want to use my own insurance. I don't want to go through work because I don't want them to know. And I explain to them they're not, but fine. Yeah. You have insurance. You have good insurance. Why not? So, I think the more open I was about it, the more the stigma that some people might have to looking for it is no longer there, because they see like, well, he's comfortable with talking about it. And they might not be, but you know, they appreciate it, and it makes me feel good too.
Did you ever get any negative pushback from it from anybody?
No, never.
So everybody's always been positive.
Always 100%. They think me, they think whoever. Just, yeah, it's hard. We're not meant to do this alone, you know. So, and that's anything.
So if you could go back 8 years ago, look at yourself then with the knowledge you have today.
Right.
Imagine somebody is in your same shoes back then. What triggers or what red flags should they be looking at that maybe they need to acknowledge, and hey, maybe therapy might be an option?
Right. Well, I'm no like, you know, doctor in psychology or nothing, but if they start, in my opinion, doing things that they know isn't them, like if you're starting to pretend, and you can take that any way you want, right? If you're starting to pretend in your attitude or pretend in your motivation or whatever, if you're pretending, then in my opinion, we're starting to have a problem there.
And the reason why I ask for your input on that is because, yes, a doctor could tell you, here's my laundry list here. If this, but I would rather get it from you, somebody who can look back on what they were experiencing then,
right,
to now having dealt with therapy and go, oh, that's what I should have been more aware of.
Right. And a lot of it too, like, you know, the company you keep, if you know something's wrong, but this is your group of friends and this is what they do or whatever, and you internally, you're pretending again, like that it doesn't bother you. It does bother you. You know, that's not you. You don't want to do it, but these are my friends, so I'm just going to go along to get along. Yeah, that's where problems start coming, you know. And if you're like, for me, and I'll admit it, like I wasn't the nicest guy before. I wasn't. I wasn't raised that way, but I somehow, because of my experiences, I started to be a certain way.
Did you realize that at the time?
No.
You just thought it was normal, or it was normal for you?
Correct. Yeah, like, oh, there's nice guy. I have nice guy friends and bad guy friends, whatever, right? Something like that.
Looking back, anything ever commented by maybe your family members or anything that you maybe ignored or pushed aside?
No, I can't think of that because I wasn't open like I am now. You know, I was just like, oh, he's fine, you know, like, because grew up in a rough neighborhood, went to war, came back, now he's a police officer, you know, he can handle this. And it's not a matter of just handling it, right? Like, I forgot where I read this once, but there's a big difference between like going through life and like living a life, like feeling alive, right? And a lot of these guys I talk to at times don't, you know, when they're down, they don't feel alive, you know?
What was the catalyst for you to start giving back to the veteran community through jiu-jitsu?
So the hard thing with that, I started a nonprofit, Fighting Hole Jiu Jitsu, 2 years ago. I just came back from a good buddy of mine who passed away. One of my core group of friends from the Marines. He lived out in Georgia, and I just flew in today. So he's my 8th friend that has passed.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And basically, my 6th friend was like, all right, I have to do something. Like, I've sent money out. I talked to my guys, coworkers, whatever, you know. But then I felt like, nah, this isn't you, Jose. Like, we need to do something. We don't just send money out and hope and pray that people are all right. Or it's not a matter of just being nice or, you know, helping out other vets when you can. So I sat down by myself one day. I was like, what can I do? What do I know? Like, what are the things I love to do, you know? And jiu-jitsu is a very, very strong part of my life. And it's helped me a lot. It's kind of difficult to put in words because it is an emotional thing, because I've put my heart and soul into these things, you know, and I've seen it help other people. Like I've taught people jiu-jitsu and they're like, yeah. And one of the basic things is self-preservation. How do you take care of yourself? Right. And self-defense is one of them. It is a self-defense, right? It's a martial art. So I was like, okay, I can do this. This is tangible, right? People can see progress. They can feel what it's like to be helpless and then do something about it. Surfing would be cool, but I was like, I don't know if I want like 7 guys out there at the time. I don't know how good a swimmer he is. And I'd rather do that like one-on-one, you know.
I'm picturing a bunch of guys with like arm floaties trying to learn to surf.
And it's scary though too, you know. So I was like, all right, jiu-jitsu. What can I do with jiu-jitsu?
Can I ask you a quick question? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you've lost 8 friends, all self.
Right.
Okay, so they've all taken their own lives.
Right.
Were you talking with any of them leading up to this about your mental health journey?
No, yeah, absolutely. These are mates of mine where we've talked openly about it. Yeah, 100%.
Were they in counseling at the time?
Some of them were. Yeah, some did it for a while. They don't want to do it anymore, and some were 100% going. Yeah.
So you decided to start your nonprofit organization. Where'd the name come from?
So Fighting Hole is basically, I'm sure people watch war movies and stuff, that hole that they dig when they're sitting there and they have sectors of fire. It's basically your defense position of guarding, you know, your base, or it might just be somewhere for the night. So yeah, your fighting hole is something it's sacred. You don't jump in someone's fighting hole uninvited. That'll cause a fist fight 100%. Cause that's your home. You know, it is, as grunts, we don't have much, but we have that. And then you and your mate make it the way you want. Everything's clean and proper. You know what I mean? Hygiene is important when you're out in the field for months at a time, you know? So, yeah, it's your sanctuary, you know,
kind of your safe space.
Correct. And that's where the name came from. That's why I named it that. 'Cause this is your place to express who you are, you and your buddies are, and you defend it at all costs. And this in jiu-jitsu it's you're the weapon, right? We don't bring in weapons in jiu-jitsu. There's no knives, there's no bat. Like, you're the one who has the ability to snap someone's arm or choke them out to death if you know that's your thing. Obviously in jiu-jitsu we let go, but or tap out. But that's why I named it that.
So when you decided to start it, was it just you by yourself?
Yeah. So I hit up a few people, and obviously we have to, since it's a nonprofit, we have to like establish a board and stuff. So I used people with certain skills that could help out as far as being on the board. I've been doing this for a while, so I approached some people if they're willing to help out, and 100% they were like, yes. Black belt's like the highest rank you could achieve. They're also very good teachers because they know it in the ins and outs, you know. And some of the people I have helping me they're just good people. Aside from being a good martial artist, they're very good people.
just willing to give back to the veteran community.
Correct.
Even if they're not veterans themselves.
Correct. Yeah. Because it takes patience. Sometimes there are people you're kind of explaining what to do, and then they just don't get the concept. So you have to take a little more care, and maybe be a little more detailed. Everyone learns differently, But yeah, that's once they said yes, 100% on board. I don't have the money or the time, because I obviously I still work full time to have my own facility. So that was a part where I was like, man, I don't know if I could do it. Talking to my sister, she's like, well, let's just do it. Like, why not? It's worth it. It's worth the fight.
I think that's something great for a lot of people to understand is we all have ideas of things we want to do. It's literally just taking that first step and just doing it.
Right.
We can sit here and talk about it all day long, but until somebody takes that first step and tries, hey, I'll take one step and I'll learn. I'll take another step, I'll learn.
Yeah.
For somebody who might be thinking on their own of wanting to start a nonprofit, what's some pieces of advice that you would give? Yeah.
So, one, you got to have the heart for it, because it is a lot of work, and then, you're monetary, it isn't going to happen for you, for the most part. There's some nonprofits that bring in a lot of money, which is great. But you have to have the heart for it. You have to want to help people for the sake of just helping people. And obviously asking around, I ask a lot all the time. I use other gym owners are like, yeah, sure, come in. I've never gotten a no, not a single time, never. And some of these gym owners I've known for a while, and a lot of them I've never even met. I'm showing up with my crew. We shake hands or hug. Welcome. This is your home. Thank you. And then, we do our thing. So, but yeah, definitely having the people who are willing to help, I think is the major thing. The other thing is patience, because it takes a lot of work.
Any resources that you could direct somebody to? So
the veteran website has a lot of resources there, quite a lot. I don't remember. I personally didn't use them, but I know other guys that I've spoken to, and I told them about it, and they've used them. Honestly, for me, I think it was just, I had such a positive reaction from the people in the jiu-jitsu community that were just like, yes, let's do this. A buddy of mine was like, here, call this, to file the paperwork, kind of a lot. And my accountant, Tanya, little shout out to Tanya. She's amazing. That girl's helped me more than I can put in words. I actually asked her once, like, why are you helping me so much? Like, this is very thoughtful of you. And I didn't even know her. So she was like, one of her kids was sick for a time, and she got a lot of help. And she goes, that's why. Because when I needed it, people stepped up for me. I think what you're doing, your mission is amazing. So I'm gonna step up for you. And she's been awesome.
So from plan to implementation, what was the time lapse?
A year.
And so for somebody who's interested in it, what's it all about? Explain Fighting Hole Jiu Jitsu.
So for us, we help veterans and first responders deal with, mental health, meaning you don't have to have a mental health issue to come do this, right? That's the main thing I want to get across. We've seen on the news that all this stuff going on in the street. And I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback people saying they should have done this. If he was training, he should have done that. That's mildly interesting. I don't care about that. I want to push forward and make people better. A lot of them were vets who are out of shape now, and they want to get in shape. Some of them used to train, and they had their second and third kid, and mama said, no more, we can't afford it. Jiu-jitsu is expensive.
Just a little.
Correct. But now with me, they're like, hey, can I come train? 100% come over. I've reached out to a few companies. I haven't heard back yet, asking for, if they can donate some gear and things like that. Cause some of my guys are in basketball shorts and t-shirt, which is fine. But, a uniform does a lot for you. So if I can get them a gi or a rash guard, something to train in, make them feel a little more like a jiu-jitsu guy, then, I'm sure it'll help. So
Do you host it in the same spot every time, or does it move around?
No. So I move around just to kind of help out other vets who are in, in different areas. And then also I want to bring like possible students to different schools. If I go to the same place, and that one gym owner might benefit only, but then like no one else will. So if I could spread, jiu-jitsu around and have whoever opens their doors to me and have one or two of my vets join their school, then that's awesome. I've had that happen, and, they've given a little discount for it. So, hey, every little bit helps,
How often are the classes?
I run at least one a month. Yeah, at least one a month, if not two.
And if somebody's got zero experience, but they want to come in, what can they expect? Is it, I think some might think, well, God, I'm going to go in there, I'm just going to get murdered.
Yeah, no. So, I definitely won't allow that. Some guys come in with absolutely zero experience. And part of the way it's structured is if you've been coming for a few months and you're getting pretty decent, I'm going to put you with a vet who doesn't know anything, because now you're helping him. So you're going to develop that bond, right? You're going to teach him the little that you do know. And it not only emphasizes the details of what you've already been taught, but also you're helping out a fellow vet too. So they get to feel what I get to feel. Does that make sense?
Completely.
Because when I see a guy come in and he's been coming for a few months and he's doing a move that I taught him, I'm like, legit, nice. That's what I'm talking about. And there's my high. But if I'm the only one doing that, or my other black belts are the only ones doing that, then it's going to take a few years before these guys actually feel what we get to feel. And I want to shorten that gap. I don't want there to be a gap. You're going to learn some things. A new guy comes in. Hey, so-and-so, this is so-and-so. Work with him for the first 15 minutes. Teach him shrimp, teach him basic arm bar, teach him mount escape. All right, cool, got it. Boom, boom. And then I'll go hands-on with that person, and then someone else will, and, so on and so forth.
Well, I think it's great that you're putting them in almost a position of teaching, because then they immediately get that feedback of giving back themselves.
Right. Absolutely. I had one guy who was a squad leader for many years, right? Got out as a sergeant. He was a Army dog. And so, he helped out a little bit, a couple of times, and he goes, Gasca, you know what, dude? I haven't taught anyone anything in years. Like, obviously he teaches his kid how to tie their shoes and things like that. But I was like, how'd it feel? And he goes, felt like a squad leader again. And that was like, that hit me right in my feels, and I was like, I didn't think of that aspect. That's what's cool with meeting all these different people, you get the start opening up to you and saying things. And that right there, I was like, man. And to him, it was probably just a short conversation, but I drove home with that in my head the whole time. Man, I made someone feel like a squad leader again. Like, that was a damn good feeling.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what geographic area are you working in right now?
So I'm in SoCal. So I've gone to Simi Valley and obviously Orange County, Huntington Beach area. Just all around SoCal. I've gone to Whittier and different places like that. So
the studios that you train at can somebody go to multiple sessions? Is there ever a point where you're going to say, okay, you've come to enough, or they can just keep coming every time?
Keep coming. Yeah. I want them to keep coming, because they're not going to like learn or get good if they just come a couple times. And the other thing, like we were talking about earlier, jiu-jitsu is cool because you'll never know enough, right? So like you could whip it on, and then you go to this other school and there's another guy there who's just better than you, right? So it keeps your ego in check. But yeah, I want them to always come, again, not only for them, but to help other guys. Because to be honest, there's sometimes I'll have 15 people there. Other times I'll have 5, and it doesn't matter. I want them to always have a place where they feel like they're doing something positive for themselves, for other people. I would love to have 15, 20 people there every time. It doesn't always happen because people have lives, and I understand that. But my sister told me a long time ago, Jose, if you help one guy, then this is all worth it, right? Someone's son, someone's dad, someone's brother. So that's the mindset that I have.
Do you have a set schedule for the classes?
No, we don't have a set schedule because sometimes like gyms kind of have their own classes, like they're not getting any money out of this. So I don't want to interrupt their stuff. And sometimes with people's work schedules, some of my instructors' work schedules and stuff might get kind of tough. So yeah, but so we're on Instagram at Fighting Hole JJ. I always post at least a few weeks in advance there when there's going to be one. And then I'll give them kind of a little reminder. And we have a website that they can email anytime. We're really good about responding back. So
classes always on the weekends?
Usually, yeah. Because quite a few people have 9-to-5 jobs. So I thought about doing some. I might try it out a few during the week just to see what the turnout is, or just get feedback, text messages, emails, see what they say about it. Because I can definitely do that too.
An obvious question though, it's always free to anybody who coming into the class.
100%. If they want to donate, then they do. Basically all that money goes to cleaning, supplies, gear. What we're going to start doing this year too, I started a little last year, is paying for, we're basically sponsor them to compete, because competitions aren't cheap either. But yeah, if I could sponsor 1 or 2 guys to get in there, because in my opinion, that's where the rubber meets the road right there. That's where you see, what you've learned so far. And then just mentally too, giving you something to prep, because you have to make weight and all that. So it's important. Yeah, definitely.
Going forward, where would you like to see this grow to?
Man, down the line, I would love it to have our own school so we can just operate like this every day. I think it's a possibility for sure. Or at least say if we do charge some people, I'll never charge a vet. I said that from day one. I won't. If I have a regular school and a vet wants to come train, he can train for me all day long. I won't ever charge him.
Are you trying to grow the organization so maybe you have chapters in different parts of the country?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. No one's approached me on that yet. I don't know how the tax situation works in different states. That's something that I would have to look into. Yeah, because I know there's a few. When I first started wanting to do this, again, it took me quite a while to get it started. But I noticed there was a few that offer it, but there's a lot of stipulations, meaning they have to have a VA rating of, 50, 80%, which is tough. Like, unless you're, for the most part, a grunt or in combat jobs, you're not going to get rated that high. Nothing against them. That's how they want to run their operation. Fine. But, I just wanted to help vets, people who were willing to sign their name on the dot. They got whatever job. They didn't see combat. I don't care. They did something selfless for this, selfless for this country. So I would like to do the same for them.
But you also open it up to law enforcement also, correct?
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
And so you talked about people showing up in basketball shorts and a t-shirt. So really, you don't have to have any gear to show up.
Nothing.
What other requirements day one showing up that do they need to know about?
So our website has all the rules and regulations. The main thing, you obviously need water because you can be very thirsty, and maybe a towel. But all I ask is just bring a good attitude, willing to learn, willing to help. Again, they're not finding any prescription pills here. There is nothing that somebody can hand you. This is going to be your work and your work alone, your sweat and your sweat alone. That's how what you want out of it is what you're going to put into it. And that's it. You're not going to get anything other than that. You're going to work 100%. And again, if you don't know jiu-jitsu, that's why we're there. No one's going to hurt you. We're not there to just smash people. You know what I mean? That's nowhere near our goal. If you get really good and you start competing for us and you win, and that's awesome. But again, that journey is not going to end for you. And I've had a lot of people tell me like, oh, whenever we come train with you, I'm so happy that day. And it's kind of surfing is the same way. When you're out of the water, it's like, man, whatever happens the rest of the day doesn't matter.
It really gives you the opportunity to focus just on that moment. You're not thinking about tomorrow. You're not thinking about yesterday. You're thinking right now.
Correct. And for my combat vets, that they see that correlation right there, because it is like, it doesn't matter that, you know, you freaking ran a badass patrol last week. If you're in a firefight today, we need to focus on this firefight so we can get ourselves and our mates home. Jiu-jitsu is the same way. If you have a guy who's 50, outweighs you by 50 pounds and a little more skill than you, you have to focus on that moment, right? And that focus is going to translate to other parts of your life, 100%. Because now your brain knows, right? And it's, I mean, obviously it's not something traumatic like war, but it's something that you could 100% apply it to your day to day. You can have a tough project at work. You have a timeline. All right, time to focus, bear down. And I think a lot of vets are so used to that, but through the years they might lose it because, you know, life happens. And here it's like you're responsible, you know, on the mat. It's your actions that are getting you out from that guy. I can help you, right? I can tell you I'll do this, do that. But I'm not going to get that 50 pounds, you know, that's smashing your chest on you. Like you have to want it.
But it gives you that puzzle at the moment to work through.
Correct.
This may sound like a silly question, but I want the listeners to hear this. It's open to men and women?
Correct. Yeah. We have men, women, officers, men and women vets. Yeah, 100%.
And even if you're older, not to be discouraged, you're bringing
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I've had like a Vietnam vet once, like, am I too old? I'm like, jiu-jitsu is for everyone, right? It's like a famous saying in the community. It's for everyone. It really is. Quick story where I train personally, because obviously I'm still a student. His first American black belt he started at 62. He got his black belt when he was 70 or 71.
Wow.
And my professor, that was his first American black belt. I always tell people that story because it blows their mind. Yeah, this guy came in, he wanted to learn, and he learned.
It gets overstated, but you know, age literally is just a number. It's whether you're willing to give into the age or not.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a great example of somebody starting later in life.
Right.
You know, and just staying with it and getting after it.
Yeah, 100%. Because, I mean, I don't care where you grew up, like people always tell you like, don't do this, don't do that, right? The naysayers, right? They're everywhere. They're at your work. They're at your kid's t-ball, you know, practice. They are everywhere. And I've always lived my life like I have one life, especially when I got out of Iraq. I was like, I'm going to make the most of this 100%. And I've taken that attitude and I raised my son that way. My friends know it, that I'll do anything for them and vice versa. And yeah.
If somebody wants to help your organization, what would be your first ask?
Well, they can go to our website and they can go on there. They can donate if they want. If, you know, they're a jiu-jitsu guy and just aren't connected with law enforcement or military, but they want to help, they know jiu-jitsu or whatever, and they have a good attitude. I always welcome guys to come in. I've never had like a shortage of instructors, but it's always cool. They might know something that we don't, and we collectively learn together and build relationships and basically become each other's tribe. You know, that's all I'm trying to do here, is to know that whatever happens, there's always people you can call. That's a main thing, especially like coming back from this trip. That was super heavy on my heart, you know, because it was he was a solid guy. He's a damn good friend, and there's just not a need for it, you know. We've all had dark spots, and people have gotten me out of dark spots, and I just want to keep doing that to grow stronger, you know, together.
Bringing it back to law enforcement and current law enforcement, how do we do a better job of getting current officers more interested in taking care of themselves and the importance of doing more than just the minimum required training?
Yeah, that's the $1 million problem right there, the question, I should say. I honestly don't have an answer to it because I don't know how to get it through people's head. I used to teach at the academy for a few years as an instructor. I was a arrested control instructor. And I even told my recruits when they left, like, I'll be here for another year or two. You guys want more training, come back and I'll throw you in the mix with my guys. I think only 4 or 5 out of, I don't know, a couple hundred took me up on it. So I don't know, like there's plenty of videos out there where they see or people are getting hurt. We were talking about it earlier, like, you screw your shoulder up bad enough, you're not going to cop anymore. You're not going to be a fireman anymore. You're going to sit in office. And that's hell on earth for a lot of us. Like I can't be indoors for too long. I just can't. So I don't understand how they don't see, or how do you go home and tell your kids, like, I don't know, like, yeah, try your best and blah, blah. And you got to be better at that. But then you don't look at yourself in the mirror and say, are you your best?
One of the things I've always, when I had trainees is, try to impart to them, you need to go home and be safe. But most importantly, think about it if your partner doesn't go home because you weren't prepared.
Right.
But again, it's that constant battle of, hey, the minimum isn't enough, because your adversaries may not be training at the minimum.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like the way I would explain to some of my recruits when I was an instructor, and again, I'm not saying I'm some ninja or anything, but if your mom needed help, do you want them to have an officer like you show up to that help, to that 911 call? Or do you want someone like me who's never stopped training? I eat good. I get my sleep. I sharpen my mind as much as I can, my body. Like, you want an officer like that? Yes or no? And they're like, no, yes. I'm like, that's how you have to think of it. Because when that lady or that man is calling 911, that's someone's mom and dad, like, let's give them our best. We owe it to our community, right? It's a respectable job, I've always felt that way. Do we fall short of the mark at times? Sure, definitely. Can we get better? 100%. I'm telling you, yes, we can do a better job. Are we going to get scrutinized still? Sure. But that's neither here nor there. You show up, have the best attitude, be empathetic, be respectful, and like, be ready for the day. Show up to work.
Sounds like a day on the mats too.
Exactly.
What I like about it is the fact that you're offering these free classes to not only vets, which is great for them and the concept of improving their mental space also, but if you've got a law enforcement officer out there who's kind of on the fence, hey, I don't really know if I'm going to like this jiu-jitsu stuff, come give it a go.
Yeah, exactly.
And see if you like it, because the classes are free.
Yeah.
Any last words you'd like to give out to anybody, as far as your organization, mental health, your experiences?
First, to the veterans, I want to say that those friends that you had when you were a young kid, they're still there. And they're just as loyal. So give them the chance to help. That's what I want to say to veterans. And to take care of each other, because the solution isn't coming from who's sitting in the White House, right? Or who's sitting in Congress. It is not. Regardless of their fancy speech and their, slick tongue, it's not going to come from them. It's going to come from us, other veterans. So invest in each other, right? Invest in yourself. To the first responders, we have a commitment. We made we swore an oath, right? And you have to maintain that. It doesn't stop when you hit your 5-year mark or you get your 10-year pen. Even when you leave, you chose an honorable profession. So when you're retired, even if you're retired young, whatever the case may be, show up. You know what I mean? Be ready. Help the community, because that's what we're here for, right? And we do that by making sure that we're solid mentally and physically. And again, take care of each other too, because a lot of officers are getting hurt out there. Could training prevent it? who knows? You know, what's the percentage of that? I don't know what that percentage is. But if you trained yourself good enough to make sure someone else lived, or someone, you know, a citizen lived, or your partner lived, then that one instance it matters, you know. And to everyone out there listening, I mean, thank you guys for opening your doors. Thanks everyone what they do for veterans in their own way. And that's it, man. Thanks. And let's keep the positivity rolling for sure.
If somebody's got questions or wants to get involved, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Our website, fightingholejujitsu.com. Again, we answer emails. All the rules and regulations are there. Instagram, Fighting Hole JJ. Give us a follow, and, you know, tell everyone knows veterans, I'm sure, first responders. Yeah, if they're in the area, we're here to help.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.